Here, Genesis chapter 5 is one of the most important chapters in the Bible, and which consists of 32 verses. And we will see the 10 generations right from Adam, and the history was recorded 1556 years. And I repeat, it is 1556 years. So this one chapter consists of 1556 years of history. And I will tell you one thing, in order to understand this chapter well, it was before Jesus Christ. Moses was believed to have lived during the period of 1456 or 1450. And the history of Moses starts from Exodus in the Bible. And the Exodus is the second book of the Bible. And from the book 2 to Malachi, and from the silent period to Jesus Christ, it was only 1450 years. And until Malachi, it was 1000 years. The period which is mentioned in the 5th chapter is 100 years excess between Exodus and Matthews. So if we do not have this chapter 5, we will not be able to find out the answers for so many questions in the Bible. And therefore it is 10 generations and the 1500 years of a period which is taken for the extension of the human race or the earth. And we see that the flood of Noah came, and which took place in the year of 1656 BC. When the time started being counted, if we continue to count the period, the flood of Noah had taken place during the period of 1656. And if we calculate this period before Christ, it had taken place 2400 BC. When the Noah flood took place, all the people were destroyed in the world except Noah. So here during the period of 1556 years of history, within the 32 verses of this chapter, we'll speak about how generations came into progress and how they extended themselves over the earth right from Adam onwards. So during this period, the human race is extended, and how they were extended was clearly explained here. So the firstborn were calculated over here in order to explain how they got extended over the earth. So the first 4 verses will speak about Adam, and the verses 6, 7 and 8 will speak about his son Seth. And the verse 9, 10 and 11 will speak about Enoch. And from 12 to 14 it speaks about Canaan. And the verses 15, 16 and 17 will speak about Mahalalel. And the verse 18, 19 and 20 will speak about Jared. From the verse 21 onwards to 24, it speaks about Enoch. And the verse 25 and 27 speak about Methuselah. And the verse 28 and 29 will speak about Lamech. And from the verse 29 to 31, we'll read about Noah. And in the verse 32, we see that the offsprings of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And these verses are divided like this. And before going to meditate upon the verse 1 onwards, I would like to give you some calculation. This is when all these 10 generations were born and how long they lived. We have to look into these details. And we should also see that when would they die. So we have to see that when were they born and how long they lived and when did they die. These 3 things are important. Here Adam, after he had committed sin against God, he lived for 930 years. Then he died. And at the age of 130, Adam fathered a son called Seth. And the days of Adam after he had fathered Seth were 800 years. Thus all the days of the Adam here were 930 years. And when Seth had lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh, and he lived 807 years after Enosh. Therefore all the days of Seth were 912 years. So he died during the period of 1042. And when Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Canaan. And Enosh lived 815 years after Canaan. So all the days of Enoch were 905 years. And he died. So he died during the period of 1140. And Canaan was born to Enoch at the age of 325 years. And when Canaan had lived for 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel. And after Mahalalel, he had lived for 840 years. Therefore all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died during the period of 1235 years. So Canaan died during the period of 1235 years. And Mahalalel was born to him at the age of 305 years. He was born at the age of 395 years. And when Mahalalel lived for 65 years, he fathered Jared. And after Jared, he had lived for 830 years. Therefore all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years. And Mahalalel died during the period of 1290 years. And Jared was born to Mahalalel during the period of 460. And by that time Adam was there, and Seth was there, Enoch was there, and Canaan was there. Jared was there, and all these people were with life. And 930 years in a sense, Adam lived until the Lamech was born. And after Lamech, Adam lived for 54 years. So here Adam had seen 9 generations. Therefore he had such a long life. And Jared was born at the age of 460, and he lived for 162 years. He fathered Enoch. After Enoch, Jared had lived 800 years. Therefore all the days of Jared were 962 years. And he died during the period of 1422 years. So he was born at the period of 460, and he died during the period of 1422. And Enoch was born during the period of 622 years. When Enoch had lived for 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. After Enoch fathered Methuselah, he walked with God for 300 years and was taken away by God. And he was uplifted to heaven at the age of 365 years. And Methuselah, here we see that he was born during the period of 687 years. And after he lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. And after Lamech, Methuselah lived for 782 years. And all the days of Methuselah here were recorded to be 969 years, the highest record of the mortal span of all other generations. And he died during the period of 1656. And the flood came during that period only. Methuselah fathered Lamech, and Lamech was born during the period 874. And when Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah. Therefore Noah is the 10th generation here. And after Noah, Lamech had lived for 595 years. And all the days of Lamech were counted as 777 years. Here Lamech, after he fathered Noah, prior to 5 years of Noah flood, he died. So he died during the period of 1651. And after 5 years of Lamech's death, even Methuselah also died during the period of 1656. Therefore, all the days of Lamech were 777 years. During these 10 generations, Noah was born during the period of 1056 years. It is 1056 years. And Noah had lived for 950 years. When Noah was 600 years old, the flood came. When he was 500 years old, he fathered 3 sons. And the prophecy and the warning of the flood came to him at the age of 500 years. So it was during the period of 1556 this warning came to him. Therefore, the flood took place during the period of 1656. And Noah lived for 350 years after the flood. Therefore, the fifth chapter of Genesis speaks about 1556 years of history, and which speaks about the mortal span of all these 10 generations, when they were born, and how many years they lived, and when they died. And all these things were seen in this fifth chapter, and has also given us the information about their firstborn. And now let us meditate upon the verse 1 onwards. And in the verse 1 we see, this is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, He made him in the likeness of God. Here we should understand that man was made in the image of God, but not God who was made in the image of man. And when we see that Adam was made in the image of God, we should understand that Adam had possessed the qualities and the personality of God. And God had given him his attributive qualities. Here Adam is a limited and simple man. He is not all powerful or all intelligent. But here God had given him the knowledge. And Adam is not a powerful man, but God has given him the power. But when we see that Adam was made in the likeness of God, we should not misunderstand that God was in the image of Adam. So here we should understand that God has rendered his likeness, his resemblance, and his image unto man, and some of his qualities. And the Lord had made man just below the angels in heaven. And God has given him his attributive qualities of his image, and made man like whatever was possible with God must also be possible to man. That kind of grace was given to him. So Adam was made in the image of God for that reason. And in the verse 2 we see that male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them to be man when they were created. And this is what Genesis 1:26 says. When God created man, he made them to be male and female for the purpose of reproduction, in order to breed the generations. And he has made out the difference between their bodies in order to fulfill his purpose unto the people. And God had blessed Adam and his wife Eve. And Genesis 1:27 we see that there is a blessing unto them. Here God said to them, go and be blessed and be fruitful and fill the earth and rule over it. So God has given them that kind of power. And God has given them delegated authority over all the creation. So God made them to be the rulers of all over the creation. And he called them man. Here man had given names to everything, in the creation, whereas God had given him man as a name. And from the verse 3 onwards, we see that the details of Adam. Here, Adam had lived for 130 years, and he fathered a son in his own likeness. Here, there is some litigation. When Adam was made in the image of God, there was no sin. But when Adam fathered the another man here, the Adam's sin was converted to his son Seth by birth. So he became a sinner. And here Seth was born with a sinful nature. When God created Adam in his own image, there was no sin. But as Adam committed the sin against God, this sin was attributed unto his son. So Seth was born with a sinful nature. So all the generations that come from Adam were born with a sinful nature. Seth was not in the likeness of God. Here is some litigation over here. When we say that Seth was not in the likeness of God, there was a sin in him that didn't belong to God, because all men belong to Adam, for we all have come from him. So in the epistle of Peter we say that we all belong to the dust, therefore we are sinners, because the first man was taken out of the dust. Therefore we are also the people who were taken out of the dust. That's why the same sin was attributed to the coming generations. Therefore Adam's nature was attributed to Seth. Even here the sinful nature of Adam was also attributed to Cain. Therefore he committed sin. But even in the Abel also there was Adam's nature. However, by faith Abel was redeemed from the sin. And Abel has become a man of faith and a believer. As he was faithful, he was saved. As Cain was unfaithful, he was not saved, and he had no relationship with God. Therefore, instead of Cain, God had given them Seth. Seth was born to Adam at the age of 130. And here Cain's life and death record was not recorded and was not mentioned over here. And Adam's age was also not recorded when he fathered Cain. And the Holy Spirit did not explain the age difference between Cain and Abel. And Abel's age of death was also not mentioned by the Holy Spirit. And we don't even have the record of Cain's life after the death of Abel and the period in which he was cursed by God. But we will have the records right from the Seth's life. So we have the timely record of this history from the moment the Adam was 130 years of age. When Adam had lived 130 years, as verse 3 says, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. The days of Adam, after he fathered Seth, were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Therefore all the days that Adam had lived here were 930 years. And here we know that mankind has got a chance of breeding at least one person per year until he goes for family planning operation. So many people are breeding their children with 1 year and 1.5 year gaps. So we do not have any particular record of the Adam's sons and daughters. And there must be or might be so many. When Abraham came to Egypt, they were all 70 men. And if they were monogamists or having single wives, there would be 70 wives. So these 70 men within 400 years, 6,05,000 men were calculated. So they were multiplied into 6,05,000 men, except children and old men. And including old men and children, there might be 4 or 5 lakhs in number. Therefore, 70 men were multiplied into 10 lakhs people. And by the time of Noah's flood, which took place during the period of 1656, and we know that Seth was born to Adam at the age of 130 years. And if we subtract this 130 years from 1656 years, it becomes 1522 years. They became 6 lakh people within 400 years. So if we continue to calculate over it, within 1556 years, there might be so much population. Because Adam had bred so many sons and daughters, and even Seth had bred so many sons and daughters, though we don't have any record of that. Here we see that they had continued to breed the generations after generations. Therefore, they were multiplied into the lakhs and the crores of people. So, within 1556 years, the generations were multiplied into many and they became the large population. So, here we see that Adam had bred so many sons and daughters. Except Seth, we don't have any record of them. Here the very concept of the Bible is nothing but to focus the Savior, Jesus Christ. We know that Christ came through them only. So here we see that from Adam to Abraham there will be 20 generations. So I will discuss it later. If we see the people from Noah to Abraham, Noah fathered Shem, and Shem is the 11th generation. And the 12th generation was Arpakshad. And Arpakshad was born during the period of 1658 years. And Arpakshad fathered Shalach. This is the 13th generation. And he was born in 1693. And Hebel was the 14th generation. He was born during the period of 1723. And Eber fathered Pereg. He is the 15th generation from Adam. He was born during the period of 1755. And Peneg fathered Rayub, and he was the 16th generation. He was born during 1787. And Rayub fathered Sherug, and Sherug is the 17th generation. He was born during the period 1819. And Sherug fathered Nahor. He was the 18th generation. He was born during the period of 1849. And Nahor fathered Terah, and he was the 19th generation. Terah was born during the period 1878. And the 20th generation is nothing but Abraham, who was born during the period of 1948. Therefore, there was 20 generations between Adam and Abraham. Here we read until the verse 5. Adam had lived 930 years, and at the age of 130 he fathered Seth. And after that he lived for 800 years, and Seth lived 105 years and fathered Enosh. And Seth lived altogether 912 years, and Enosh lived for 90 years, and he fathered Canaan. And Enosh lived for 815 years after Canaan, and he lived altogether 905 years. When Canaan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel, and after he fathered Mahalalel, he lived 840 years. Therefore all the days of Canaan were 910 years. And when Mahalalel lived for 65 years, he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived after he fathered Jared 830 years, and all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years. And when Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. And after Enoch, Jared lived for 800 years. So all the living days of Jared were 962 years. And when Enoch had lived for 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God for 300 years after he fathered Methuselah. And Enoch lived for 300 years after Methuselah and was taken away by God. And he was uplifted to the heavens. This is called the transfigurement of the body. So he was transformed into the heavenly body. It seems that Elia was also taken away to heaven. And Methuselah had lived 187 years, and he fathered Lamech. And after Methuselah fathered Lamech, he had lived 782 years. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, the highest mortal span of all the generations. And when Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah, saying, "Out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands." And after Noah, Lamech had lived for 595 years. So the living days of Lamech were 777 years. And after Noah was 500 years old, he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And from the lineage of Shem, Abraham came. And Shem is the 11th breed. Therefore, we have got 1556 years of history that is consisted in the 5th chapter of Genesis. And this is very, very prominent and important.